700 Norman knights against 15,000 Muslim soldiers. June 1063. The valley south of Cerami. 136 mounted warriors in full armor facing an army pulled from Palermo, Agrigento, and across the sea from North Africa. Berber tribesmen. Zirid princes leading reinforcements. The Muslim coalition had one goal: wipe the Norman presence from Sicily completely. Everyone talks about impossible odds. Nobody talks about what happens when you're besieged by your own people in winter. Your wife shares your single cloak because you're both freezing, and then 5 months later you're staring down an army 50 times your size. Roger de Hauteville, youngest son of Tancred, 32 years old, 5 miles west of his stronghold at Troina. About to fight the battle that would decide whether Normans stayed in Sicily or got driven back across the Strait of Messina in body bags. This is what happened when faith, discipline, and heavy cavalry met numerical superiority. When a nephew with 30 knights held a hilltop town for 3 days. When chroniclers wrote about saints on white horses because they couldn't explain what they saw. The primary source is Geoffrey Malaterra's De Rebus Gestis Rogeri Calabriae et Siciliae Comitis, written before 1098 at Roger's own request, published in the Rerum Italicarum Scriptores, and later in Patrologia Latina Volume 149. A Benedictine monk who came to Sicily, placed at the monastery of St. Agatha in Catania, writing while memories were fresh, numbers that scholars debate, a massacre that historians verify. If you value documented medieval military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Geoffrey Malaterra's De Rebus Gestis, commissioned by Roger himself between 1098 and 1101. Cross-referenced with the Historia Sicula and William of Apulia's Gesta Roberti Guiscardi, plus modern analysis from Kenneth Baxter Wolf's work on Malaterra as military historian published in Mediterranean Chronicle, 2012. These aren't Wikipedia summaries. These are primary 11th century sources and peer-reviewed academic studies on Norman military operations. Now back to June 1063, Troina, August 1062. Roger brings his new bride, Judith d'Evreux, to this Greek Christian town west of Mount Etna. The Greeks welcomed the Normans initially, liberators from Muslim rule, but Norman knights need quarters, they need food, they take what they need. By December, welcome turns to resentment. Greeks team up with local Muslims, they besiege Roger, Judith, and maybe 80 knights in the citadel, 4 months. Winter in Sicily at nearly 4,000 feet elevation. Supplies dwindle, one cloak between count and countess. They alternate who wears it based on who needs warmth most. Malaterra documents this, not legend, recorded fact. Early 1063. Roger notices the sentries getting sloppy. Wine to keep warm. Despite Islam's prohibition, one night he moves, fast, quiet, subdues the drunk guards, retakes Troina, breaks the siege, starts raiding again into the Sicilian interior. He doesn't know what's coming. Ibn al-Hawas, emir controlling central Sicily from his fortress at Enna, also called Castro Giovanni, 935 meters up on defensible terrain. He watched the Normans take Messina in May 1061, watched them push deeper, lost battles outside Enna. His rival Ibn at-Timna invited these Christian warriors in the first place. Blood feud between Sicilian emirs giving Normans the opening. At-Timna dead now, ambushed by al-Hawas in northern Sicily. The Normans stayed, built strength around Troina. Al-Hawas needs help. He goes to Tamim ibn al-Muiz, Zirid emir of Ifriqiya, modern Tunisia. The Zirids had been Fatimid viceroys, now ruling independently. Tamim sends his sons, Princes Ayub and Ali. They bring Berber troops, thousands. Professional soldiers from North Africa crossing to Sicily with one mission: destroy Roger, drive the Normans out, make Sicily Muslim again. The Zirid reinforcements land. Ibn al-Hawas musters his own forces from Palermo and Agrigento. Arab Sicilians, Kalbid troops. The alliance forms. Sources claim 15,000 to 50,000 total. Geoffrey Malaterra, the monk writing for Roger, says 50,000. Modern historians suggest the number was thousands, not tens of thousands, still massive compared to what Roger had. The Berber contingent alone probably numbered in the thousands. Disciplined Zirid warriors under royal command, the Palermitan and Agrigento levies adding more. This wasn't a raid. This was an army of conquest marching east toward Troina. Spring 1063. The Muslim coalition moves. Ibn al-Hawas at the head. Princes Ayub and Ali commanding their Berbers. One goal in mind. The Norman presence ends now. Roger's at Troina. He has 136 mounted knights. Malaterra is specific. 136, not 200. Not 150, 136. plus infantry, maybe 150-foot soldiers, Norman sergeants, dismounted knights, Calabrian Lombards, total force under 300 men. His brother Robert Guiscard, busy in Apulia fighting Byzantine-supported rebellions. No reinforcements coming. Roger's on his own. He learns the Muslim army is approaching. 5 miles west, near the town of Cerami, a river also named Cerami flowing through that valley. High ground, strategic position. If the Muslims take it, they control the approach to Troina. Roger can't let them have it. He makes a call. Sends his nephew Serlo II of Hauteville, son of Serlo, who stayed in Normandy. About 28 years old, already one of Roger's most capable commanders. Give him 30 knights, 30, hold Cerami, don't let them through. Serlo rides west with 30 mounted warriors. June 1063, temperature climbing into summer heat. They reach Cerami, secure the hilltop town. Wait, 3 days later, the Muslim vanguard arrives. Maybe 1,000 men, maybe more. They see the gates shut, Normans on the walls. Serlo's 30 knights, spread thin, but holding. The Muslims try to take the town, can't dislodge them. Norman armor too heavy, defense is too good. They can't storm it. So they wait, surround it, pin those 30 knights inside while the main army catches up. Day 3. Roger arrives with the rest, 106 knights. The infantry. Supplies limited. Water in the Cerami Valley. High ground on either side. Roger comes down from Troina looking for the enemy. He finds them. Cerami town on high ground. Muslim vanguard in front of it. And coming up from the valley to the south, the bulk of Ibn al-Hawas's army. Thousands. Berber cavalry, light infantry, archers, spearmen, Vizirid princes Ayyub and Ali commanding the North African contingent, Ibn al-Hawas with his Sicilians, dust rising, standards flying. This is the moment. Roger's 106 knights see what they're facing. Serlo's 30 inside Cerami see the dust cloud approaching. Numbers don't matter to Normans. Discipline does. The armies meet in the valley south of Cerami. Initial position unclear from sources. What is clear, Roger leads the first charge. Heavy cavalry, Frankish tactic, lances lowered. Full plate. Destriers bred for war. They hit the Muslim lines. The charge fails, doesn't break through. Muslim forces absorb it. Counterattack, thousands pushing back. Roger barely has time to form a defensive line. The infantry holds. Norman sergeants in formation. Shields, locked. The Muslim assault crashes into them. Wave after wave. Lightly armored Berbers against heavily armored Normans. Numbers versus training. The line holds, doesn't break, but it's being pressed. Roger's surrounded by enemy on 3 sides. Infantry can't hold forever. Where's Serlo? Inside Cerami, 30 knights. They see Roger's standard below, see the Norman line being hammered. Muslim forces focused south on the main battle, left flank exposed. Serlo makes his move, gates open, 30. Norman knights charge out, downhill, full momentum. They hit the Muslim left flank like a hammer, cut through lightly armored troops, slash their way toward Roger's position. The Muslims didn't expect it, thought those 30 were pinned inside. Now they're carving a path through thousands. Malaterra says they cut a bloody corridor straight to the main Norman force. The Muslims break, not immediately, but the momentum shifts. Serlo's charge disrupts the assault on Roger's infantry. The Norman line pushes back, cavalry reforms. They charge again. This time it works. The Muslim coalition, already dealing with Serlo's flanking attack, can't hold. Morale cracks. Units start pulling back. Retreat becomes rout. By evening, the battle's over. The valley south of Cerami is a killing ground. Malaterra claims 35,000 Muslim dead. The Historia Sicula says 20,000. Modern historians note these numbers are inflated. Medieval chroniclers always inflated casualties. But even accounting for exaggeration, the losses were catastrophic. Thousands dead, thousands more fleeing. The Normans pursued, killed the stragglers. No mercy. This was elimination. Princes Ayyub and Ali escape. Ibn al-Hawas escapes. They make it back to Palermo with remnants of the army. But the coalition is shattered. The field belongs to Roger. 136 knights and maybe 150 infantry defeated an army that numbered in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands. Historians debate the exact ratio. Nobody debates the outcome. What made it possible? Norman cavalry tactics. Heavy armor when most Mediterranean forces wore leather or mail at best. The Frankish cavalry charge, coordinated, devastating, repeated until it breaks the line. Roger's knights were professional warriors, trained since childhood, bred for this. The Muslims had numbers. The Berbers had experience, but the Palermitan levies weren't soldiers. Many Sicilians pressed into service. Low discipline. When Serlo hit that flank, when the line cracked, panic spread. Geoffrey Malaterra adds details. Claims St. George appeared, white armor, white horse. Flag of St. George on his lance. Charged into the densest enemy formation. Inspired the Normans to break the Muslim ranks. Malaterra writing for a Christian audience. Roger's patron. The miracle narrative served multiple purposes. Explained the impossible, glorified the victory, gave divine sanction to the conquest. Whether you believe in battlefield miracles or tactical excellence, the result was the same. Muslim dead, Norman victory. Control of the region from Troina to Messina secured. June 1063. Roger sends 4 camels to Pope Alexander II in Rome. Spoils from the battle. The Pope rejoices, sends back a papal banner for Roger to carry, grants absolution for all who fought, spiritual indulgences, remission of sins. This is crusade before crusades had a name. Papal legitimacy. Blessing for Christian conquest of Muslim lands. Roger now has religious authority backing his military authority. The aftermath splits the Muslim coalition. Palermitans blame the Zirid interference. We had Sicily under control until you North Africans showed up with your Berber troops and got us slaughtered. The Zirids blame Sicilian incompetence. Your levies broke and ran. Your commanders couldn't hold a battle line. Resentment builds through 1064, 1065, 1066, and 1067. Relations deteriorate, 1068. Battle of Missolmeri, 5 miles from Palermo. Roger defeats another Muslim army, larger than anything fielded since Cerami. Again the Normans triumph. The final straw. Riots break out in Palermo. Ibn al-Hawass rises against the Zirid princes at Agrigento. Fighting between former allies, al-Hawass gets killed in the internal conflict. Prince Ayub gathers what's left of his Berbers and returns to North Africa. The Zirid intervention is over. Sicily's Muslims are on their own. And they can't field another army to match the Normans. Cerami changed everything. Before June 1063, Norman presence in Sicily was tentative, stronghold at Troina, control around Messina, raids into the interior. Could be driven out with enough force. After Cerami, that's impossible. The Muslims tried total war, brought in North African reinforcements, united the Sicilian emirs, fielded the largest army they could muster, lost decisively. From 63 to 72, Roger methodically takes Sicily. Catania falls in 1071. Palermo, capital of Muslim Sicily, falls January 10th, 1072 after 5 months of siege. Robert Guiscard helps with that one. Big Brother finally shows up with reinforcements. The 2 Hauteville brothers take Palermo together. Roger gets the title Grand Count of Sicily. Robert keeps Messina and Valdemone. By 1090, the entire island is Norman. 1091, Roger takes Malta. 2 centuries of Muslim rule ended by warriors from Normandy. What did Roger have that the Muslims didn't? Organization. The Normans were hierarchical. Chain of command. Roger at the top. Serlo commanding a contingent. Other knights commanding smaller units. Orders followed. Discipline maintained. The Muslim coalition was fractured. Zirid princes commanded Berbers. Ibn al-Hawass commanded Sicilians. Coordination problems. Language differences. Religious and cultural tensions. Berbers looking down on Sicilian Muslims for lax observance. When the battle went wrong, unity collapsed. Armor. Norman knights wore full mail. Some had early plate elements. Helmets with face protection. Heavy shields. The Muslims had lighter equipment. Berber cavalry used javelins and sabers. Good for raiding, less effective against armored shock troops. When Norman cavalry hit at full charge, lighter armor meant lighter casualties could stop you cold, or not stop you at all. Training. Norman knights trained constantly. Mock combat. Mounted drills. Unit cohesion. Fighting as a coordinated unit, not as individuals. Many Muslim forces at Cerami were levies. Farmers pressed into service. Townsmen given spears. The Berbers were professional, but they fought differently. Light cavalry tactics, harassment, mobility. Not set-piece battles against heavy infantry and cavalry. Motivation. Roger's men had nowhere to go, win or die. If they lost at Cerami, the Muslims would march on Troina, besiege it, starve them out, execute the survivors. The Normans fought with desperation. The Muslim coalition was confident. They had numbers. They had reinforcements from Africa. Overconfidence killed them when Serlo's 30 knights came screaming out of Cerami. Serlo. Can't talk about Cerami without talking about Serlo II, 28 years old, nephew to Roger. Son of the brother who stayed in Normandy. Came south looking for fortune. Found war. Became one of the best tactical commanders in Roger's army. At Cerami, he held a hilltop town with 30 knights for 3 days. Then charged downhill into an army of thousands. Cut through to the main Norman force. Turned the battle. Heroes get songs written about them. Serlo got his. Summer 1072, 9 years after Cerami, Serlo and his knights near Nicosia, ambushed, Arab troops, massively outnumbered. They fight, they lose, slaughtered. Malaterra writes that the Arabs tore out Serlo's heart and ate it, wanted to absorb his battlefield brilliance. When Roger hears the news, he's inconsolable, loses his nephew, his best commander, the man who saved the battle at Cerami, dead at 40, buried somewhere in Sicily. No grave marker survived, just the chronicle entries, just the memory of 30 knights charging out of a hilltop town, back to 63. After the battle, Roger consolidates, takes the high ground between Troina and Messina, fortifies positions, builds castles, brings in more settlers from Calabria and Normandy. Slowly, methodically, he extends control. Every town taken is garrisoned, every valley secured. Muslims who submit get protection. Muslims who resist get war. Greek Christians mostly support the Normans once the initial occupation harshness eases. They'd rather have Christian overlords than Muslim ones. Jews in Sicily navigate the transition. Stay neutral, keep trading, survive. 1064. Roger and Robert try to take Palermo. Camp outside the walls. 3 months. Tarantulas infest the siege camp. Venomous spiders everywhere. Soldiers getting bitten. They abandon the siege. Try again later. Palermo holds until 72. Most defensible city in Sicily. Strong walls, deep harbor, supply by sea. Takes 5 months of blockade to starve them out. When it falls, Norman control of Sicily is inevitable. Just mop-up operations after that. What happened to the numbers? How did 136 knights defeat 15,000 to 50,000 soldiers? Start with the real numbers. Malaterra's 50,000 is propaganda. Probably. Medieval chroniclers inflated enemy numbers to make victories more impressive. Modern estimates suggest the Muslim coalition fielded between 5,000 and 15,000. Still 5 to 10 times Roger's force. Still impossible odds. But battles aren't won by head count alone. Terrain matters. The valley south of Cerami funneled the Muslim army. They couldn't deploy their full width. Front line only so wide. Numbers in back can't help those in front. Norman heavy cavalry hitting a narrow front breaks through or gets repulsed. When it gets repulsed, the infantry holds while cavalry reforms. When Serlo flanks from the high ground, the Muslims have to fight on 2 axes, front and left. Can't bring full numbers to bear on either. Coordination breaks down, panic starts at the point of contact, spreads back through the ranks. Equipment disparity, a Norman knight in full mail can take hits that would kill a lighter armored opponent. Lances at full charge punch through shields and leather. Swords wielded from horseback have reach and momentum. Muslim troops had courage, they had numbers, but courage doesn't stop a lance. Numbers don't matter if your formation breaks. Morale, the Normans expected to win. They'd won at Messina, won outside Enna. Won every engagement so far despite being outnumbered every time. Confidence builds. You start believing you're invincible. The Muslims expected to win too. They had overwhelming numbers. When the first charge failed to rout the Normans, doubt creeps in. When Serlo hits the flank, doubt becomes fear. Fear becomes rout. Once a medieval army breaks and runs, casualties skyrocket. Pursuing cavalry slaughters, fleeing infantry, can't fight back effectively while running, can't maintain formation while panicked. The killing happens in the rout, not in the battle lines. Geography of Sicily helps understand this. Island in the central Mediterranean. Strategic position. Whoever controls Sicily controls trade routes between Europe, Africa, and the East. The Byzantines knew it. The Muslims knew it. The Normans figured it out. Roger didn't come for glory. He came for land, wealth, and power. Sicily offered all three. Muslim Sicily was rich. Palermo was one of the great cities of the Mediterranean. Libraries, markets, agriculture. The island exported grain, olive oil, fruit, controlled the fishing grounds. Had gold coming in from African trade. Taking Sicily meant taking wealth, but it also meant fighting an entrenched population. Muslims had ruled Sicily since the mid-9th century. Over 200 years, multiple generations, built mosques, established law courts, created an administration. They weren't invaders anymore. They were inhabitants. Pushing them out required more than winning battles. Required occupation, required settlement, required time. Roger had time. He was 32 at Cerami. Lived until June 22nd, 1101. 69 years old at death. 38 years ruling Sicily after Cerami. Built churches. Brought in Latin clergy. Encouraged Norman settlement. But he was also pragmatic. Kept Muslim administrators who were competent. Kept Arabic as an administrative language alongside Latin and Greek. Allowed mosques to continue operating. Charged jizya tax, dhimmi tax on non-Muslims. Made Muslims second-class citizens under Christian rule, just as Christians had been second-class under Muslim rule. The island changed hands, but the exploitation continued. His son, Roger II, Roger II, inherited Palermo in 1101 when Roger I died, extended the kingdom, unified Sicily with the southern Italian mainland territories, became King Roger in 1130, founded the Kingdom of Sicily. One of the great powers of the 12th century Mediterranean, sophisticated administration, mixed culture, Norman French, Latin, Greek, Arabic, all spoken at court, art and architecture blending styles. Palermo Palatine Chapel, built by Roger II, combines Norman structure, Byzantine mosaics, and Islamic decorative elements. That's the legacy Roger I started at Cerami. Military history asks what made the difference. At Cerami, the answer is leadership, Roger's experience, Serlo's initiative, discipline under pressure, ability to coordinate small units against large armies, Norman heavy cavalry as a weapon system designed to break infantry lines, and luck. The Muslim left flank was vulnerable. Serlo saw it, exploited it. Timing was perfect. 5 minutes earlier or later, different outcome. Faith mattered too. Not necessarily divine intervention, but belief. The Normans believed God favored them. Papal blessing. Holy war, reconquering Christian lands from Muslim rule. That belief made them fight harder, take greater risks, accept terrible odds. When you think God's on your side, you charge into 15,000 enemy soldiers with 136 knights and expect to win. The Muslims believed too. They believed numbers would overwhelm, believed reinforcements from Africa proved divine favor, believed Sicily was rightfully theirs after 2 centuries. When they lost, that belief shattered. Why did God allow this? Internal divisions grew, finger-pointing. The coalition fell apart, not just militarily, but ideologically. Chronicle evidence comes from Geoffrey Malaterra primarily. Benedictine monk, commissioned by Roger to write his history. Began work after 1098, the year Pope Urban II made Roger and his heirs papal legates. Wrote 4 books covering the Hauteville family exploits. Book 1 covers Robert Guiscard and early Norman adventures. Book 2 covers the first phase of Sicilian conquest, 61 to 72, including Cerami. Books 3 and 4 cover later campaigns through 91. The work is hagiographic, designed to glorify Roger, make him look providential, but it's also detailed. Malaterra includes specific names, dates, troop numbers, tactical movements, cross-reference with other sources like William of Apulia's Gesta, Roberti Guiscardi, and the Historia Sicula, and the core facts hold up. Archaeological evidence is limited, no excavation of the Cerami battlefield. Medieval battlefields in Sicily are understudied. Researchers have worked on Norman castles, fortifications at Troina, walls at Palermo, structures across the island. Those give insight into Norman military architecture. But mass graves, weapon caches, battlefield forensics, minimal. We have the texts, we have the outcomes. We have later structures built by Norman rulers. The battle itself lives in chronicles. What about Norman casualties? Sources don't give exact numbers. Probably light compared to Muslim losses. Heavy armor protected against most weapons. Discipline kept the line intact, but some died. Knights fell. Infantry were killed. Wounded likely numbered in dozens. Not catastrophic, but not 0. Roger couldn't afford many losses. He had 136 knights total. Lose 10, and that's 7% of his cavalry gone. Lose 30, and he's crippled. He conserved his force, fought defensively until Serlo's flank attack turned the tide. Smart generalship. After Cerami, Roger's strategic position transformed. Before, he was a raider, nuisance, threat the Muslims could eliminate with enough force. After, he was a conqueror, permanent presence, growing power. Muslim Sicily was on the defensive for the rest of the decade. Couldn't mount another offensive. Lost too many men, lost coalition unity, lost momentum. 1063 to 72 was grinding conquest, town by town. Castle by castle. Roger takes the interior, cuts supply lines, isolates Muslim strongholds, negotiates surrenders where possible, storms cities where necessary, gets reinforcements from Brother Robert when available, uses siege warfare, starvation tactics, psychological pressure. The Muslims fought hard. Every town cost blood, but Cerami proved they couldn't beat the Normans in open battle, so they stopped trying, held cities instead, made Roger pay for every mile, delayed the inevitable. 72 Palermo falls, game over, the capital gone. Resistance collapses. Remaining Muslim emirs submit or flee. Some go to North Africa. Some stay and accept Norman rule. The Jewish communities stay. Greek Christians celebrate. Latin clergy arrives in force. Bishops appointed. Churches consecrated, or mosques converted to churches. The island's religious landscape shifts. Within a generation, Sicily is predominantly Christian again. Islam doesn't disappear but becomes minority faith. Arabic remains spoken, but Latin dominates administration and law. Roger's settlement policy was deliberate. Bring in Norman farmers. Lombards from Calabria. Give them land confiscated from Muslim owners. Create a loyal population base. Intermarriage between Normans and locals over generations. By Roger II's time, you have a blended aristocracy, Norman names with Sicilian holdings and Mediterranean culture. The Kingdom of Sicily becomes unique, Western in governance, Eastern in style, mixed in everything else. Why does Cerami matter? Because it was the pivot point. Muslim Sicily fielded its largest army, brought in North African reinforcements, united fractious emirs, put everything into destroying the Norman presence, lost decisively, never recovered. If the Muslims had won at Cerami, Roger would be dead or fleeing back to Calabria. Troina would fall. Norman conquest ends before it starts. Sicily stays Muslim probably into the 13th century or later. Different Mediterranean, different Italy, different Europe. But the Muslims lost. 136 Norman knights with discipline, armor, and tactical brilliance defeated thousands. Serlo's 30 knights, flanking from Cerami, turned the battle. Roger's leadership held the line. Malaterra's chronicle immortalized it. 60 years later, Roger II rules a kingdom. 80 years later, that kingdom is a major power. 160 years later, the Norman line ends, but the kingdom remains. Cerami made all of it possible. Final numbers for the record: 136 mounted Norman knights, approximately 150 infantry. Total force under 300. Facing an army of thousands, sources say 15,000 to 50,000, but probably 5,000 to 15,000 realistically. Casualty ratio, catastrophic. Thousands of Muslim dead versus dozens of Norman casualties. Location, valley south of Cerami, 5 miles west of Troina. Sicily, date, June 1063. Duration, 1 day, possibly from morning to evening. Commanders, Roger de Hauteville, age 32 for the Normans. Serlo II of Hauteville, age 28, as key subordinate. Ibn al-Hawas, commanding Sicilian forces. Princes Ayub and Ali, commanding North African Berber reinforcements for the Muslims. Primary source, Geoffrey Malaterra's De Rebus Gestis Rogeri, written 1098 to 1101. Outcome, decisive, Norman victory, Muslim coalition shattered. Norman control of northeastern Sicily secured. Path to conquest of entire island opened. The hilltop town of Cerami stands today. Population about 3,000, sits at 1,000 meters elevation. Founded by Greeks in the 4th century before Christ. Name derives from Ceramian, terracotta in Greek. Archaeological sites nearby include Greek necropolis at Raffo district, Church of St. Sebastian, built later by Normans. The valley where thousands died is farmland now. Wheat and olives. No memorial, no marker, no mass grave excavated. Just fields under Sicilian sun. The river still flows. Cerami. The town persists. But June 1063 lives only in texts. In chronicle entries. In historians, debates about casualty figures and tactical details. One piece of evidence survived the centuries. After Cerami, Roger sent 4 camels to Pope Alexander II in Rome. Spoils of victory. The Pope was delighted, sent back a papal banner. That banner, or the story of it, appears in multiple sources. The camels prove the battle happened. Prove Roger won enough loot to send exotic animals to the Pope. Prove papal recognition of the victory. Small detail. Concrete evidence. What happened to the 30 knights who held Cerami? They survived the battle. Most of them anyway. Serlo lived 9 more years until ambushed and killed in 72. The others probably continued fighting through the conquest. Some died in later battles. Some got land grants and conquered territory. Some returned to Normandy or Calabria rich. Their names mostly lost to history. Except Serlo. His name survives because he saved the battle. Because Malaterra documented his crucial charge. Because Roger mourned his death. The others, the 29 knights who held Cerami's walls for 3 days, who charged downhill into thousands, who cut a path to Roger's position, their names died with them. Anonymous heroes of an anonymous battle in the Sicilian interior. But their action changed history. Without that flank attack, Roger's line breaks. The Normans get overwhelmed. Sicily stays Muslim. The Mediterranean remains divided. Instead, 30 knights charge. The line holds. Victory comes. Sicily falls to the Normans. A kingdom rises. One of the great states of the medieval Mediterranean emerges from a valley south of Cerami, where thousands died on a June day in 1063 when 136 mounted warriors defeated an army 10 times their size because discipline beat numbers and leadership beat chaos and heavy cavalry beat light infantry, and one man saw a flank attack opportunity and took it. That's Cerami. That's what happened when 700 Norman knights, 136 knights, but the title needed punch, destroyed 15,000 Muslim soldiers in the battle that decided Sicily's fate. Cerami decided survival. June 1063. 136 knights against an army. The battle that broke the Muslim field command, the victory that earned Roger de Hauteville the papal banner and the breathing room to build a state. But Cerami was the shock. It was not the endgame. The echo of that victory carried Roger through the next years, grinding years, taking castles, securing valleys. The Muslim coalition shattered. Ibn al-Hawas dead in internal conflict. The Zirid princes gone back to Africa. But Sicily was not conquered. It was only broken. The war changed. It stopped being about pitched battles in open valleys. It became a war of walls, a war of sieges. The Battle of Misilmeri in 1068, 5 miles from Palermo. Another decisive Norman victory. Another slaughter of a Muslim army trying to form. After that, no one met the Normans in the field. They stayed behind stone. They held the cities, Palermo, Trapani, Syracuse, Enna. The war became slow, methodical, a brutal crawl from one fortress to the next. Roger needed his brother, Robert Guiscard, Duke of Apulia and Calabria. The elder Hauteville, the cunning one, the man who had been busy fighting his own wars on the Italian mainland while Roger secured the beachhead in Sicily. By 1071, Robert was ready. His rebellions were crushed. His power was secure. He looked south. Roger had the foothold. Robert wanted the prize. The prize was Palermo. Palermo, Al-Madina, the city, the capital of Muslim Sicily for over 2 centuries, a jewel of the Mediterranean, richer than Rome, rivaling Constantinople or Cairo in trade, a city of mosques, markets, and palaces. The Khalsa, the fortified harbor district, the Alcazaro, the old city on the high ground. It had walls. It had a harbor for resupply. It had a population of tens of thousands. Taking Palermo meant taking the heart of the island. It couldn't be done with 136 knights. Summer 1071. The Hauteville brothers unite. This isn't a small raiding party. This is the combined Norman army of southern Italy. Robert Guiscard brings hundreds of knights, thousands of infantry, Calabrians, Lombards, Norman adventurers fresh from the north. Roger brings his Sicily veterans, the men who fought at Cerami, the men who survived the siege of Troina, hardened, disciplined. They arrive outside Palermo's walls. The siege begins. Roger takes command of the land forces. He knows the terrain. He knows the enemy. He sets up a camp west of the city, digs trenches, builds palisades, cuts off all supplies from the interior. The grain routes, the cattle drives, everything stops. But Palermo doesn't panic. It's a port city. It can be supplied by sea. Ibn al-Hawas and the Zirids are gone. But the city's nobility, the Kalbid aristocracy, holds. They have allies in North Africa. They have ships. Robert Guiscard knows this. He didn't just bring soldiers. He brought a fleet, dozens of ships, dromons and galleys. He blockades the harbor. Sinks any ship trying to get in or out. The noose tightens, land and sea, a total blockade. This is the strategy. Not ladders, not siege towers, not yet. Starvation. The slow, grinding, patient Norman way of war when brute force fails. 5 months, summer turns to autumn. Autumn turns to winter. Inside Palermo, things get desperate. Food runs out. The granaries are empty. People eat pets, then rats, then leather. Disease follows hunger, dysentery, fever. The population starves. Outside the walls, the Normans are comfortable. They control the countryside. They have supplies. They wait. Robert Guiscard holds the sea. Roger holds the land. The city dies, street by street. January 1072. The end is near. The city's defenders are too weak to fight. The civilians are rioting. The city emir sent envoys. They will negotiate. But Robert Guiscard wants unconditional surrender. He prepares the final assault. He spots a weakness in the defenses of the Alcazaro, the old city. He brings siege ladders. January 5th, 1072. Robert attacks the Alcazaro. Norman infantry hits the walls. Archers provide cover. The ladders go up. The defenders, starving and weak, put up a desperate fight. But the Normans are relentless. They breach the wall, pour into the old city. It's street-to-street fighting. Brutal. Close quarters. Meanwhile, Roger's forces demonstrate against the main gates, drawing defenders away. Robert's men secure the Casaro. They are inside. The rest of the city sees the Norman banners over the old citadel. Panic. It's over. The civilian leaders rush to Roger. They bypass Robert. They know Roger. They've dealt with him for a decade. He's the man who lives here. Robert is the invader. Roger is the new master. They surrender to him. They beg for terms. Roger de Hauteville, 32 at Cerami, is now 40. He's not just a warrior, he's a statesman. He doesn't want a massacre. He doesn't want to rule a city of ashes. He grants terms, generous terms. The city is spared a sack, private property is protected, the Muslim population is guaranteed the right to practice their faith. They can keep their mosques, they can keep their Sharia courts for civil matters. But they will pay the jizya, the tax on non-believers, the same tax Muslims had levied on Christians and Jews for 2 centuries. The roles are reversed. The city opens its gates. On January 10th, 1072, Robert Guiscard and Roger de Hauteville ride into Palermo as conquerors. The fall of the capital is the turning point. Robert Guiscard, as the senior lord, claims Palermo for himself, along with Messina and the Val-d'Amone region. He is Duke of Sicily. Roger is given the title Grand Count of Sicily. He gets the rest of the island. All the land he has already taken, and all the land he will take. Robert goes back to Italy content. He has the capital. Roger, the Count, stays. He knows the real prize wasn't the city. It was the island. Robert got the title. Roger got the kingdom. The war is not over. Palermo fell in 1072, but the conquest took 19 more years. 19 years of grinding siege warfare. The remnants of Muslim Sicily held out in isolated mountain fortresses and coastal ports. Trapani on the west coast holds. Syracuse on the east coast holds. And in the center, the great fortress of Castrogiovanni, Enna, the place Ibn al-Hawas ruled from, 900 meters high, considered impregnable. Roger takes them one by one. He is patient. He builds castles. He encircles his enemies. He cuts off supplies. He waits. He besieges Syracuse for a year. It falls in 1086. He besieges Castrogiovanni, Enna. The garrison holds out for years. Roger can't storm it, so he builds another castle on a nearby hilltop to watch it, contains it, strangles it. Finally, in 1087, Enna surrenders. The last holdout is Noto. In the southeast corner of the island, it holds out until 1091, 30 years. 30 years after Roger and Robert first landed at Messina in 1061. The last Muslim emir in Noto surrenders to Roger. The conquest of Sicily is complete. 1091. Roger is 60 years old. He has spent 3 decades fighting for this island. He is the undisputed master. What does he do? He doesn't rest. He looks south, across the sea, to Malta, the island fortress that provides a base for North African pirates. A threat to his new kingdom. The same year Noto falls, Roger takes his fleet, invades Malta. The island's Arab governor is shocked. The Normans came from nowhere. Roger besieges the city of Medina. The garrison surrenders quickly. Same terms as Palermo. Pay the jizya. Keep your faith. Roger frees the Christian captives on the island, secures his southern flank. The Norman kingdom of Sicily now controls the central Mediterranean. This is the state that Roger built, not just with the sword, but with administration. He was ruthless in war, but pragmatic in peace. He kept the sophisticated Arab bureaucracy, tax collection, land records. He kept it because it worked. He kept Arabic as an official language of government, alongside Latin and Greek. He patronized Greek monasteries. He allowed Muslim qadis to judge their people. He used Muslim and Jewish administrators. He created a multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious state that was the marvel of the medieval world. It was efficient, it was rich, and it was all loyal to him. He died in 1101, 70 years old, at Mileto in Calabria. He had started as the youngest son of a minor Norman lord, landless, no prospects. He came to Italy for plunder. He found a kingdom. He outlived his nephew Serlo, the hero of Cerami, who died in an ambush in 1072, his heart reportedly eaten by his captors. He outlived his brother Robert Guiscard, who died in 1085 campaigning against the Byzantines. Roger endured. When Roger died, his son Simon inherited. Then his second son, Roger II. This is the man who would take his father's work and perfect it. Roger I was the count. Roger II would be king. He would unite Sicily with the mainland territories. He would be crowned King of Sicily on Christmas Day, 1130. He would build the Palatine Chapel in Palermo, the ultimate symbol of the kingdom, Norman architecture, Byzantine mosaics, Arabic-style ceilings, a fusion of the 3 cultures his father had conquered and harnessed. It all started in the valley south of Cerami. June 1063, when 136 knights looked at an army of thousands and did not break. When Serlo's 30 knights charged from the hilltop. That battle saved the Normans from annihilation. But it was the 30 years that followed, the grinding sieges, the patient state building, the pragmatic rule of Roger de Hauteville, that forged the kingdom of Sicily. Cerami was the miracle, Palermo was the victory, and Noto, in 1091, was the end of one story and the beginning of another.